Here we go with the District 1 AAA Central tournament. Starting off 106 pounds. As you can see, the bracket is on the screen, and you'll listen to me give my preview and a little bit of here and there about some of the matches and matchups we can possibly see this weekend at this tournament. This weight class is the weight class to lose for Matt Vulak, who was super impressive last week at the PAC tournament. He's on another level than everyone else in the pack, and he's going to be on that same level compared to everyone else in this bracket as well. As you can see, I have Matt Martin coming out of the pigtail along with Shane Reynolds, and let's talk about Shane Reynolds in some of the broadcasts and matches we've seen. Real physical 6-pounder, and it's going to behoove him in this tournament where he's going to make the semifinals before he loses to Vulak in the semis. And down on the bottom half of the bracket, we have Julian Maldonado making his way out to the final, and he's definitely the second best guy in this bracket here. Both Vulak and Maldonado a little bit undersized 6-pounders, but just ferocious competitors and guys that just get after it. Real solid technique, but again, it goes Vulak then Maldonado. Couple other matchups here in the bottom half of the bracket. Antonio Valentin, Phoenixville freshman, 26-3 on his way into districts here. Tough kid, scrappy. He's gonna get by the champ from the Central League, Griffin Hollinsworth, to make the semis, but Maldonado's gonna be way too much for him in that match, and put him down in the wrestlebacks. Look down at the wrestlebacks and the constellations. Valentin dropping down and Reynolds dropping down. Those two winning to meet for third and fourth place. And, Reynolds coming out there on third. Again, Reynolds just too much for Valentin like he was last week. Just too physical, too strong. And that's the difference between, probably the age and maturity of the two. Methley and Hollingsworth wrestled for 5th and 6th place, with Hollingsworth taking 5th, as I have predicted. It's going to be a PAC sweep in this weight class. Again, PAC, it's a down year for the PAC overall, top to bottom. It's real top heavy this year, but Central League is unfortunately kind of down too, to what they've been in the past few years. And for a couple years now, a lot have been saying that the PAC's going to sweep the Central League, and Central League, all they've done is just shown up and compete and done a real nice job. But this year is just a year they don't have the hammers that they've had in the past. Gone are the names of Marino and Kennerly and guys that came in that were gonna come in and win matches and win titles for the Central League that they just don't have this year. So let's move into 113 pounds, and our 1 seed is Jared Coons, and again, he is the cream of the crop in this weight class as well. He's going to wrestle Morbido again in the finals if I had to put money on it. Both guys are just head and shoulders above everyone else in this bracket. You have a few tough guys, other guys, Politi from Garnet Valley, and was impressed with seeing him in the past, but I think watching David Forrest wrestle this year on a regular basis and seeing how he's evolved and opened up his offense, and he's not just hitting the same moves that he has that got him to where he was as an accomplished youth wrestler. He's really grown as a wrestler, I think, even though Politi beat Forrest last year. Forrest returns the favor this year, qualifies or gets to the semis before losing to Coons. And guy who again, to make a 4-for-4 of the PAC in the semis is Quinn Tobin. Had a good tournament in the PAC, beat Forrest last week, which some didn't expect, myself included. But has just been coming on wrestling real tough down the stretch for the Rams. And I think he takes out Morgan Laughlin from Conestoga. Again, the record's 31-3, but he's got 8 wins by forfeits and only a few that have gone the distance. So I think Quinn Tobin's been a lot more scraps than Laughlin, and it's gonna come in handy in that quarterfinal bout. We look at the drop down here. Again, you're looking at the strength of this weight class. Keikos I don't think he's ever lost in the high school to Politi, and I don't see it changing on Saturday. And you have the Keikos Tobin matchup, and then Stamen Forrest to make it again. Top six going to be all pack in this weight class. You know, Tobin and Forrest both winning to wrestle again, and they've wrestled something like 8 times in high school already. And I've talked about it in the past about the amount of times they've wrestled, and just that district duels when Springford wrestled O&J. Dan Tobin and Lee Forrest, parents of the respected wrestlers, they sat with one another. It's pretty, they said it was something pretty neat to see, and they're very familiar with one another. And although Tobin won once on last weekend, Forrest returned to favor in the 3rd and 4th place match, and I see Forrest coming out on top again here. So as we move into 120-pound weight class, and part of me wanted to just put down Brandon Meredith and leave it at that, but didn't want to be this one of those weight classes where you can look at this one, or you can look at the 120 in the West with Doug Zaff, or 182 in the East with Josh Stillings. Just weight classes where you have just a hammer and a bunch of other wrestlers that just start on that level. But I have Meredith coming out of off the top half of that bracket into the final, taking out Mehraj Khan from Upper Darby in the semis. And the bottom half, a little bit more parity. Noah Fisher from Boyertown, who had a phenomenal tournament last week, finishing 2nd in the pack, is going to run into some problems. I see the Chris Henkel from Radnor ending not ending the run for Fisher, but keeping him from getting back to the final, and but not before Christian Hodges from Lower Merion taking out Henkel and getting to face Meredith in the final. Getting to the final is, like I said, aside from Brandon Meredith, everyone's wrestling for 2nd place in this weight class. But if we go down to the drop down here, with Henkel and Khan dropping down from the semis, Pedro Carmona from Methacton, giving Henkel some problems, but not enough that it's gonna worry him all that much, and Khan taking care of Fisher. And then you have the 3 out of 4 from the Central League going here at 120 pounds into regionals, by my account. Khan taking 3rd place, and then you have Carmona and Fisher duking it out for 5th place, with Fisher taking 5th. And again, for you wrestlers that are watching this, I can't stress it enough. Like I've said it for as long as I've been doing these, that you always wrestle that 5th place match. You might be upset that you didn't qualify for regionals, but wrestle the 5th place match and take it serious. If you pay attention this week to the amount of guys that dropped out or had issues, and as a result, that 6th place or whatever place guy is the next man up. You just look at today alone. It's Thursday night right now. 10:45 p.m. and just within the last hour, you saw in the forum that Joey Milano is out. Tyler McCutcheon was dropped because of injury, and Carbajal from Springford as well, along with some of the others we've had earlier in the week. So it's really important to wrestle that match and give yourself that best opportunity to get in, even if you don't qualify. You never know what happens. We go into 126 pounds, and this match here, this bracket here, the marquee matchup will happen in the semifinals, and that will be Connor Quinn and Jack McGill from Springford. These two have already wrestled 2 times on the year, with Connor Quinn getting the best of Jack McGill. And I see the same thing happening again here, and Quinn getting to the final. And again, I have Quinn wrestling Chase Banye from Pottsgrove, and we saw what Quinn did to him in the finals last week. I think Banye will close the gap a little bit in the final if they meet again, but he won't be able to stop the onslaught of offense that comes from Connor Quinn. Banye will do his best to slow him down, but there's not the same. There's no. I don't see any way playing out where he can, get close the gap that much that he can win the match. You should never say never, because he can always get caught. But in the straight up match, Connor Quinn wins 10 out of 10 times. Uh, Chase Banya, though, I feel that some people don't say that Bagirov is a better wrestler from Springfield Delco, and Bagirov's pretty tough, and he's been around, and he's won a lot of matches. But some of Banya, he's coached by Jeff Madden, and it's one thing you get out of Jeff Madden, Coach Kidd, is he's going to come out, he's going to be scrappy, he's going to be hard-nosed, he's going to be in your face, and Banya is not the most technical wrestler, but you put him up there with some of the tougher guys, and he goes out and gives you a full 6 minutes every time, and it's not always pretty, but he's always good for at least 1 or 2 wins in the postseason over someone he doesn't or shouldn't beat, and that's one of those ones where I think he'll get Bagirov in the semis. As we drop down here and we look at the wrestlebacks, Bagirov and McGill being the 2 losers in the semis, and they're going to both advance after that and make it into the Conci final with, again, McGill, one of the upstart freshmen from Springford that I've been pretty high on all year. Stamps his ticket to regionals with a 3rd place finish, beating David Bagirov from Springfield Delco, and then Will Reber from Methacton coming back and after losing in the quarters, and takes 5th place with a win over Isaiah Tucker from Norristown. So that's your 126-pound weight class. As we move on to 132 pounds, we had a change here this evening, so the bracket had to be redone based upon the drop here of Tyler McCutcheon. So sorry about that. Here we are at the 132-pound weight class, and Keyway McNair, after having a great pack tournament and great season up to this point in the sophomore campaign, which is probably a guy that probably had high expectations for last year that probably fell a little bit short, as I talked about in the broadcast last Saturday night with Ryan Logan. Comes in and he's just been a man on a mission this year, and nothing changes this weekend with him cruising to the final and winning the 132-pound weight class here at the Central tournament. And we'll actually get a rematch with Svanson in the final. I really thought before the bracket changed that it really favored Tyler McCutcheon to have a nice run the way everything fell, but he sustained an injury in his 3rd place match last week, where he had an injury default, hurt his back and unable to continue. So it's unfortunate for him as a senior to end like that, but he's been trying all week with rehab, and it's just not working for him. But so the bracket as it changed, and there also was another drop in this weight class with Tyler Amendola from Conestoga, which changed earlier in the week as well. But here we go. I like Nathaniel Parsons from Potson to come out and beat Jake McGrath from Ridley, the senior on senior there. Again, Parsons, real aggressive wrestler. Saw him go to distance with Banye from Pottsgrove in the and go in overtime in the match we covered earlier this season. I saw him wrestle against Antonio Petroselli earlier in the season, wrestle him real tough. So Parsons, a scrappy guy, is going to go out and feel that he has he's wrestling well after finishing 3rd in the pack to come out and beat McGrath from Ridley. Going down to the bottom half of the bracket, we have Svanson coming out, going to the finals, getting beaten Roberto Lesser from Harriton in the semis to get there. And Svanson, again, dangerous guy. If you can beat you in a lot of different ways, and I think he's just going to be based upon the level of competition he's seen this year in regards and in comparison to Roberto Lesser, he's way more prepared for this grind in the postseason and these tough matches, match after match. Looking at the rest of this bottom half of the bracket, Dirk Nugent's a kind of a guy, had a real bad weekend, I think by his standards and others. I don't think he wrestled to the best of his ability in the pack, and I definitely seen him wrestle better and I'm not sure which guy is going to show up this weekend. I'm hoping to see the Dirk Nugent that I saw in the regular season wrestle and compete, but the guy I saw over the weekend, I don't know if he was sick. He just didn't look himself, so I'm hoping that he gets back to form, but I'm not 100% positive that we will see that. Looking at the drop downs here with Lester dropping down, wrestling McGrath, who lost in the quarters to Parsons. Lester getting the best of him again this week, and then Nugent wrestling back after losing in the quarters to Svanson, wrestling Parson from Pottstown. And again, not sure which guy I'm going to get, so I'm going to go with the guy that's been wrestling better, and that's Parson from Pottstown. And Parson then loses to Lesser, and Nugent beating McGrath for 5th place. And that's how I see this bracket falling. If Nugent's on his game like he was earlier in the year around the time of district duels, you could see Nugent potentially in the final. I mean, that's just the way it goes with him. But if he wrestles the way he did this past weekend at the Pack, he could be in for a long weekend. But like I said, he's got the potential to be a finalist in this weight class. So time will tell where he is in this tournament. Here at 138 pounds, and Antonio Petrocelli is the 1 seed from Owen J. Roberts, a sophomore. Had a pretty good Pack tournament and enjoying a pretty good and solid sophomore campaign. I see him. You can see it on the screen. I see him winning this weight class as well. It looks like he'll see Brennan Stocku in the finals. Stocku comes in with a record of 31-1. His lone loss is to Petrocelli, a 5-2 setback at Conestoga Valley in December. And this comes down to, sometimes people say I use this reason too many times, but, one of the things that Glenn and I talked about in the preview of this season, we talked about strength of schedule. And the Pencrest schedule just isn't what the O&J schedule is. And you talk to some coaches, and talk to a bunch of coaches that wrestle that tough schedule year in and year out. R.P. Norley, Steve DeRaffalo, Dave Jones, and Sil Perry, and those programs that you see at the top year in and year out are close to it. It's not always year in and year out unless you're kind of Council Rock South. But the recipe for it is, on top of everything else you do, is getting your guys top level competition throughout the season. And this is something that I think will be the difference right now between Stocku and Petrocelli. They wrestled back in over Christmas break, and like I said, at Conestoga Valley, it was 5-2. It was a close 5-2, but the fact of the matter is, like in that time, the level of competition and the chance to get better, and the training partners in the room, all I think favor Petrocelli as far as him coming out on top in this rematch. Petrocelli goes through Raleigh, who he's pinned earlier in the year, and Davis Huth, a tough senior from Ridley. But again, Petrocelli's wrestling really well. And then in the bottom half of the bracket, Rosansky from Perkiomen. I think the match between him and Stocku is going to be a good match, because Rosansky, one thing he's good at is he's good at changing the pace of the match. He's good at making his opponent wrestle his match or wrestle at his pace. And I watched it last week. I've seen Rosansky and Petrocelli go back and forth through middle school, and now see him again as high schoolers. And Rosansky did a nice job of keeping Petrocelli from keeping the pace too fast, too much. But at the same time, I think that's all he was able to do. He couldn't get to his offense. He couldn't get to anything else because he was too busy trying to slow down Petrocelli. Will he be able to slow down Stocku? Possibly. Will he'd be able to slow him down and get to what works for him? I guess time will tell if and when that happens. Like I said, I think this should be your 4 semifinalists. I could be wrong. It's happened before. But the Rosansky-Stocku match could be a real good one of the better semifinal matchups in this bracket, or in this bracket, but in the tournament. And we move down to the bottom here. With Rosansky losing, One of the other guys I wouldn't be doing him justice if I didn't talk about him is Zach Needles, and he was fourth place in the pack, and he's 15-11 on the year, but he's wrestled everywhere in that lineup for Springford. He's been all over the place. I think he spent time at 26, 32. He's wrestled matches at 38, and he didn't wrestle as high as 145. And now he's settled in with Devin Swink on the lineup for postseason. Needles gets to settle in. Probably not his natural weight, but he's in the lineup nonetheless, and he's 15-11 on the year. But don't sleep on it, because he's wrestling all over the place, and I don't think he's ready to run with a guy like Staku yet. But again, watching him get almost tech faulted by Brandon Meredith one week and then turn around and take him to overtime a week later, or 4 days or 5 days later at that, it says a lot about the kid. So who knows what's going to how it's going to play out. But I have him losing to Staku, but I have him coming back and taking fourth and qualifying for regionals as a freshman, because the kid is tough as nails, and he's only going to get better. And I'm excited to see where all these freshmen from Springford finish up, because there's a lot of hype around them, and right now, in my opinion, they're living up to it. I got Huth beating Bregziner from Norristown for 5th place as well to round out this bracket. But again, there's your top, Petroselli, Staku, Rosansky, and Needles going on to regionals from this bracket. Again, I don't say you can flip a coin on the Rosansky-Staku match, but don't be surprised if Rosansky gets the upset there, and Needles isn't going to give Staku a handful as well in that quarterfinal match. So if Staku makes the finals, it'll be hard fought and deserving to be there. Let's move on to 145 pounds. And we got Ryan Vulox, the 1 seed, and looked super impressive last week in the OW in the PAC tournament, and did so by beating returning regional qualifier Roman Moser in the final, and in the semis beating returning state qualifier Cole Meredith from Owen J. Roberts. You'll see those same 2 matchups on Saturday, with Vulox beating Meredith and Vulox beating Moser, beating both of them again in the semis and the finals. There's just, those 3 are the top wrestlers in this weight class. Vulox on another level, and then Moser and Meredith, close second and third respectively. Not necessarily in that order, just their Moser and Meredith are more on the same level. It'd be really nice to see Moser and Meredith wrestle. I don't want to call into question the seeding methods of the tournament, but Vulox probably should have been the 1 seed last week, with Moser and Meredith being the 2 and the 3. Again, flip a coin, and then that way they could have wrestled off for the right to wrestle Vulox for the championship. But then again, or here again, we have Meredith wrestling Vulox in the semis, and Moser on the bottom half of the bracket wrestling, into the finals and seeing Vulox again. A few other guys to keep an eye on in this weight class is Justin O'Donnell from Upper Darby, and Brett Bridor from Boyertown. Again, tough guys that are going to be in the mix here as we look down at the drop down. I have Bridor beating O'Donnell in the quarterfinals, but then losing to Moser. Bridor is 21-14, O'Donnell 29-3. Bridor is a guy, seen him wrestle on several occasions this year, and he doesn't allow you to get comfortable, and he comes after you. I saw him wrestle against Petroselli earlier in the year. I saw him wrestle against Meredith. Saw him wrestle against Springford, and he just stays on the attack, and doesn't allow you to any space to breathe. And I think it's gonna be too much for O'Donnell there in the quarters. And then if we look down at the drop down, Bridor gets DJ McIlvain in the Consi semis, and O'Donnell gets Cole Meredith after Cole losing to Vulox. And Meredith's too much for O'Donnell, and Bridor beats McIlvain, and they have Bridor and Meredith matching up again, as we saw last week in the consolation final, and Meredith getting the best of them again. I'm not saying it's Bridor, I think, closes the gap with Meredith, but I think ultimately Meredith wins the match, and O'Donnell taking 5th place over McIlvaine. And that, again, an important match to win just in case something happens, because you never know. 152 pounds. Here's another one. It is, you have Dan Mancini and you have the rest of the field. And when I say that, I mean no disrespect to any of the wrestlers. I'm just simply making a statement, and can't say it's 100% factual, but Mancini is on another level compared to the guys in this weight class. And there's just the way I feel about it. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. So Mancini, win a top half of the bracket, get Kyle Strasdis from Ridley in the semis, and make his way to the finals. The bottom half will be a little bit more interesting. Last week Mancini beat D'Arcangelo from Springford in the final. I think James Leto from Laura Marion beats D'Arcangelo in the semis and gets to the final. And but again, Mancini way too much for him. He comes in a record of 30-2, but we call him to question. Who's been in more tough matches in the course of their season, and the proof's in the pudding as far as the level of competition that each of those two wrestlers have seen. Mancini's seen a way better level of competition, and is way, not way, but is better prepared for this match here in the matchup in the finals. We look down at the bottom. It gets a little interesting on the bottom here. You have D'Arcangelo dropping down in the semis, and again, I talked about him, like a tough kid that he just plays a lot of sports, doesn't focus all the time on the wrestling that, say, like, Mancini does, because he's a varsity athlete in 3 sports and excels in all 3 sports. And I think I made the comment in their match, like, it'd be kind of fun to see if he would just concentrate on wrestling. The ceiling would be way higher, and he gets the most out of what he can do is with the time he spends doing it. So, like, he's a kid I like that the multi-sport athlete and excels in all of them. So he gets his stands ticket to regionals by beating Nick Seaman from Norristown, and on the bottom half, Strasdis beating Kerwood to get into this Consi final, and D'Arcangelo winning to take 3rd, and Seaman winning to take 5th place, as you can see there at the bottom. So there's your it goes 2-2, 2 from the 1st and 3rd from the pack, and 2nd and 4th from the Central League at 152 pounds. So 160 pounds. I need to change it to the new bracket, and apologize as I fit it to the screen here. 160 pounds, need to first and foremost talk about the loss this weight class had with Joey Milano going down with a leg injury. Just dropped tonight. I heard some rumblings early this morning that there'd be an announcement coming out that he was out. And, again, one of these other freshmen that super talented from Springford that just an unfortunate injury. I was really looking forward to seeing what he could do this postseason. Had a nice season once he started wrestling in January, and won some big matches. I was really looking forward to seeing, again, I can't say enough how well he could have done this postseason as a freshman. 160 pounds, real tough weight class to break into as a freshman. But as a result, Ricky McCutcheon moves to the 1 seed, and Mortimer moves up to the top half, and in the bottom half goes Blake Moore and Washington move down. And as far as the pack wrestlers go, all the Central League guys stay the same for the most part. I see McCutcheon coming out, winning, getting to the semis after beating Mortimer. Getting a little bit of revenge on Mortimer. They wrestled earlier in the year, and it was like a 1-point match, like 6-5 or 3-2 or some 4-3, something to that effect. That was won by Mortimer. But I think McCutcheon wrestled really well. At just gauging the 2 matches he had with Milano, I believe he lost like 7-1 and or 7-3 and then 10-1, but turned around, lost 3-1, and really changed his game plan to wrestle him, and just did little things to be better. And I feel that at this point in the season, he's doing a lot, doing more to game plan better in matches, and I think he'll be better prepared to wrestle Mortimer this time and win to get to the finals. On the bottom half of the bracket, Mortimer will have a tough match with Jake Johnson from Upper Darby, and but ultimately, win that one to get to the semis. But on the bottom half, we have Blake Moore and the champ from the Central League, John Crawford, on a collision course for the semis. And Blake Moore's pretty slick wrestler. He's been around, and he's kind of like maybe the one guy that gets overlooked in this weight class from the pack, in my opinion. You don't hear a lot about him, but all he does is go out and win matches. And again, it's top level competition. He has win over Mortimer, and has wrestled Milano tough on the year, and Milano's not there, so it's kind of like wide open. That I think any of these guys can win between Crawford, Blake Moore, McCutcheon, and Mortimer. But I think Blake Moore beats Crawford in that semifinal, except the final with McCutcheon. And I'm going to go with McCutcheon on it. Just a hunch. I think he's wrestling well. Some people call him my own Jay bias. But I just think watching wrestle against Milano, he was confident, got a lot of attacks. Just Milano's counter offense, which is better than McCutcheon's offense. And I think with the confidence that McCutcheon had from that match in defeat, is going to drive him to victory this weekend. And we look at the drop down here. Crawford and Mortimer drop down in the semis. Alex Washington going to come out and win a match. But again, he's just not there yet. Washington from Phoenixville, wrestling for new head coach Brandon Clark, and Brandon Clark and that staff doing phenomenal job there as far as bringing that team along. But Washington's maybe still just a year away. Mortimer's just a little bit too tough for him. Crawford and Jake Johnson, rematch from last week's final of the Central League, with Crawford winning again, and then Mortimer beating Crawford to take third, and then Johnson beating Washington to take fifth at 160 pounds. So we roll over to 170 pounds. Give me a second. Had to add those brackets in of the weight class changes at 132, 160, and 195. So here we are at 170 pounds, and you have a weight class that's kind of wide open. I think Zollers is the guy to beat here. He had a great tournament last week, and someone that really impressed me that I didn't see come was Iacovetti from Upper Merion. I think he gets back to where he gets back to the final again, and only because I'm not sure what the deal is with Michael Gradwell. I understand he's hurt as too. He's banged up a little bit, and I know he injured default some matches, and they just got him into districts. So if he's 100% healthy, he can make some noise here, and he could easily be in the final. I don't know what I have him. He actually winning this first round match, getting to quarters. And the only reason I have Brett Burns beating him is because I'm just not quite sure of his health. That's one of the ones that I've not got an indication of how healthy he actually is. So I have Burns win there, and Iacovetti, beating Burns. And something I saw Iacovetti is his ability to kind of stay close to with an opponent, and when he got on top of Zollers, his ability to use that cradle to his advantage. And I think that's the difference that gets into the final. And if you see that rematch with Zollers and Iacovetti, you can better believe, just like you saw in the pack final, that Zollers with the choice will not choose to go down on Iacovetti, because the cradle that he has is pretty dangerous. He made it look easy when he cradled him up there and took him to his back and made the match close for a little bit. But the pace that Zollers set towards the end and maintained was a little bit too much for Iacovetti to overcome. But we look at the drop down here. I figure if Gradwell is somewhat healthy, he's still going to get through. He'll just have to come through the hard way. But again, this bracket could be completely blown up if Gradwell comes out and he's healthy. And healthy Gradwell could make the final, could make the semis, and could really make some noise here. But I'm going based upon what I know, or what I think I know, which is that he's kind of nicked up, and that Springford staff will do their best to get him through to regionals, give him some time to heal. Bryce Thompson, I need to make sure I need to mention him, making it out to got him coming out, making the semis, beating Drew Mayers from Garnet Valley. Thompson, the senior, the guy just has done nothing but get better throughout his career, and having known him from the youth level, he's just improved every year, and enjoying a nice senior season. I see him making the semis, but unfortunately, he gets Gradwell on the way through, and if Gradwell is, healthy, if he is 75 or 80%, I think that's enough to beat Thompson, get through, and then Brett Burns, coming off losing in the semis, beating Gradwell for third place, and Thompson winning fifth place. So moving on, 182 pounds, and we got Chase Smith coming off the big win in overtime, not overtime, at the end of the match, 4-3 win over Jacob Miller, and that's a matchup I see happening again. Horvath pretty tough from Radnor, but he's not tough enough to beat Smith, and Sean Peterson having a nice season as a sophomore. Again, I think the Miller's going to be just a little bit too much for him, and you're going to see that Miller-Smith matchup again. I see Miller winning it. He kind of, I wouldn't say he had the match in hand, but phenomenal effort by Smith at the end to never give up. I mean, for those that, and it's my fault no one got to see that match because I messed up on the recording, but Miller Matt returns Smith with 10 seconds to go right into a crab ride, and you felt that Miller was in good position to win the match at that point, and Smith just didn't stop. Like, it was a great testament to wrestle till the end, or wrestle till they stop you, or you hear a whistle, because he just didn't give up, and he couldn't get out of the crab ride, and all of a sudden he reaches back 2 hands, grabs the head, and literally kind of pulls himself over to get neutral. I'm sorry, to get neutral to take the 1 point lead, to win 4-3. It was pretty pretty cool to see. So I really apologize for messing up. I apologize to Smith and Miller too. I mean, you have a chance to have your match filmed and done, and I messed it up. So it's definitely a cool match to see if you're there. Unfortunately, again, I won't make that mistake again, guys. I promise. So moving on, as we see how the drop down here, Peterson and Horvath drop down, and they'll meet for third place. It'll be a rematch from last week's final, and I have Horvath getting redemption on Peterson, and then Charo and Van Horn wrestling for fifth place, with Charo getting the win there to finish that, not ever so important, but pretty important fifth place match. Moving on to 195 pounds, we have to, bring up this one here. Here's the revised one with Carbajal out of the weight class, and again, it's one of those weight classes where you have a guy that's on a different level, and that's Elijah Jones. I think Jones wins this weight class fairly easily. He might be challenged a little bit at times, but not to the point where he'll be in any kind of danger. I think Rich Maggio, again, is a guy that's been around, senior. He'll challenge. He'll get them qualify for regionals, but he won't challenge Jones too much. One of the matches I'm looking forward to seeing is going to be this semi. Well, I'm thinking Willie Mathis didn't have the best pack tournament, and based upon what I've seen and watched of his results, I'm picking him to beat Boyer here in the quarterfinals and get a matchup with Files. And I haven't beaten Files getting to the finals, and that is in itself, I think, it's one of those weight classes, like I said, with at like 120, where everyone's wrestling for second place, because first place is already barring any catastrophes, already decided. And so with that said, with Mathis going there, Files and Maggio dropping down, and you look down at Files and Maggio, Tommy Dempsey making the best of his opportunity, going to win 2 matches here, getting in to the tournament as a result of just of an injury and being prepared. I mean, Dempsey's a guy who was in the room every day this week, just wrestling because he wanted to, and then he gets the call that he's in the tournament today, and he's already ready because the weight's good, and he didn't take any days off, so he has been ready to go, and makes the most of it, wins 2 matches as a sophomore, but then Maggio too much for him, and Maggio and Files meet up, and I got Files beating him to take third, and Scott Jean beating Dempsey for 5th place to round out this weight class. So you see the pack going 4 for 4 in this one, 1st through 4th. Moving on to 120 pounds. Sorry. So I got all my brackets open here. Let's move on to 220. So this one is on. You kind of have Rec, and then you have Pelham, and you have Ellis, and you have LaRocca, and there's some talented guys in this weight class. And Colton Deary is a freshman from Garnet Valley. Not sure what to make of him yet. I'm looking forward again. To seeing him compete this week, and I feel Rec's going to be the guy that wins this weight class. I don't think it's going to be in dominating fashion. I think he's going to win this weight class. I think Tony Ellis makes the final. Some funny, I was looking up at Tony Ellis, and I talked about this last week, is that he didn't wrestle, from what I looked at, didn't wrestle 220 pounds till like February 8th of this year. First time ever. He was a heavyweight his freshman and sophomore years. And didn't wrestle. Now, he may have weighed in at that weight earlier in the season because I didn't have the weigh-ins, but as far as when he actually hit the lineup as a 220 pounder wasn't until like February. So that was pretty cool, guy. He definitely slimmed down, and he had a pretty nice tournament. Lost to Rec in the finals, however, and I have him getting back to the finals again. But at the same time, that bottom half of that bracket, I think that the LaRocca Deary match can go either way. I have LaRocca winning. I'm going to take the senior over the freshman. Real hard for freshmen to break in at this weight class and find a lot of success. Not saying it's never happened, but sometimes it takes a lot. And I'm going to go with the senior on this one, at least in this matchup here. And I'm going to take Ellis to beat LaRocca to make to the final. Now, as we look at the drop downs here and see where we're at, with Pelham and LaRocca losing, dropping down, Scott and McLeod coming out, wrestling LaRocca in the Conci semis for a chance to go to regionals. I'm going with LaRocca. McLeod beat him 3-0 last week at the PAC tournament in the third and fourth place match. But I think in his home gym as a senior, I think LaRocca gets it done. And Deary coming out winning a match over Amazugan from Upper Darby, and then wrestling Pelham from Conestoga. Sorry about that, Paul. I'm going to take Deary to win again, and then with Deary and LaRocca, the rematch from earlier in the day, I'm going to take Deary. Everything I see about this guy, that he's got a pretty high ceiling and bright future. I feel that LaRocca gets him earlier, he won't make the same mistakes twice and be savvy enough to beat him on the rematch in that day. And then I got McLeod beating Pelham for third place after losing to him earlier in the day. McLeod, one of our ranked guys, and just one of the ranked guys in the region. Just haven't seen him wrestle. I don't know that he struggles with the bigger guys to wrestle at times, and I don't know if he has the motor to go full 6 minutes every time. A lot of his matches haven't gone the distance, and I think that's going to catch up to him here at the district tournament when you're seeing tough competition match after match. Looking at the heavyweights here, 285, and this I have is the predicted only all Central League matchup here in this whole tournament. Uh, all year Lee Holbert's had a great season, and so has Tom Doyle. But I think Lee Holbert, and at the end of the day, is gonna be a better wrestler. The one guy I'm excited to see wrestle again is Isaac Hanna from Pottsgrove. He has his guy just keeps coming at you, and he's nonstop. It's not, like I said, one of those guys not always pretty, but he keeps coming at you. I don't think he's going to give Holbert that much of a match, but I'm excited to see Hanna wrestle in the wrestlebacks after losing to Holbert. I think Holbert beats Doyle, and then we look down here. The Tommy Mahoney from Garnet Valley, I think he's going to come out and going to get a matchup with Holbert, with Mahoney winning again. There's just the pack just doesn't have like a standout heavyweight like we have in some years past that can is going to go. We did unfortunately another injury that Springford endured, which just happened to be earlier, was Matt Lepore, and again a guy that was ranked high and thought of by a ranking team, and was high up in the rankings all year, but unfortunately had an issue with a broken ankle, I believe, and was not able to finish the rest of his season. And although Ed Calloway's filled in admirably, he's not Matt Lepore, and Matt's dearly missed, and I was hoping to see him compete this season and wrestle to achieve some of the goals he probably set for himself. But it's unfortunate. Injuries do happen. We look at the wrestlebacks here in the bottom half of this weight class, and you have Isaac Hanna, as I said, coming out, and then I have him with the upset over Jair Holmes from Perk Valley. Just again, calling me just being a fan of him, but he's saw him wrestle a few times this year. He had a big win over Ed Calloway in the wrestlebacks last week. I saw him wrestle Doyle into overtime in the match that we covered, and I just think he doesn't make it look nice, but winning a win is a win, and I think Hanna beats Doyle for third place as well. And then you have Holmes and Sonder wrestling for fifth, with Holmes beating Jacob Sonder from Boyertown. So again, with the Central League taking the first and second place, the next four places belong to the pack. And that's what I got for your District 1 AAA Central League brackets. If I had to venture a guess as to the team champion on this, and I hope you guys stay tuned and listen to this aspect of it. Team race now with Milano out, but at the same time McCutcheon out, Carbajal out, Dempsey in. I feel O&J is a team to beat in this tournament right now. But if we saw anything last week in the pack, it was pretty tight up like down the stretch. Springford did bust it open there in the finals, but they're gonna be. Will they have the same success? Will they get as many guys in the finals? Will O&J get as many guys in the finals? Boyertown, they're just as dangerous as they always been. They don't have the stud talent that they have, but they have, again, solid guys that they've brought to districts. So it's all about winning, and winning where you can, and bonus points as much as possible. So if I was a betting man, I'd go O&J, Springford, Boyertown 1, 2, 3 here in the West, or I'm sorry, the Central tournament here. So that's all I got for the Central. Look forward to feedback on the forum. I know everyone's looking forward to it. I'm sorry I couldn't get them on earlier, but I was trying to wait for brackets to be finalized, drops, and just things like work get in the way sometimes. So that's hold me up, but you'll have it in time for Friday, so you can digest it, listen to it, criticize, and whatnot when you get to see it. And again, thank you as always for tuning in. If you have not done so yet, please go on the Facebook, or the YouTube page, and give a like. Help out Mike, and with everything he does here is it's a great service that is provided, and a lot of hard work goes on, and a lot of people that put in time and effort. And, I'm very thankful to be part of it, and thank them for making it what it is. So here we go. Stay tuned for the other brackets and tournaments as well.